Sports. It's spinning.
The following program is rated TV MAL. It contains strong language and is intended only for mature audiences.
All right. Well, thank it now. Anyway, so aliens have abducted Appalachian American, and they put me in charge. So sorry. This is as good as it gets. Anyway, problem is my camera's here and the stuff I need is over here. But hey, we'll get through it. So I am Channel Dad Brian Lape, your substitute host for the night. I was going to try and do everything in German and decided not to. But the recovering gentleman to my, is this my right? To my right.
I'm on the other side.
Applegate.
G'day, friends and fans. Recovering? I don't know. I was fine, and now all of a sudden it's back. I think it's called. I think I have the ex-wife flu. You know the one. Every time you think you've done, every time you think it's gone, it's back to annoy you.
Yes, I understand. With the mother-in-law, and join us from across the other way. He's below me. Anime Night, say hi.
Hello, everybody. What a wild night we had last night. Holy crap.
Oh.
A very wild night last night, and a lot of wildness going on in all across the world. The FBI guy is going to be gone, and then Adam Schiff Reigns is being a cartoonish loser. Because guess what, Mr. Schiff? We're a constitutional republic, not a democracy. Get your facts straight. You picky beaver.
Look, I think Californians are losers because why they're voting for Adam Schiff when he won't even live in California?
Why? Yeah, that's like that's like
school.
That's like voting in Massachusetts for Mitt Romney when he's not even there.
But that's the problem, isn't it? California, you put a D after somebody's name, and the most obtuse people will go, "Yep, I'll vote for that."
I thought you had to live in the state to. I mean, is he running for state government or like representative to Congress?
No, he's a congressman. And now he's running for senator, isn't he?
I think he's already in the. I think he's running. He is running for
Adam Schiff, but he doesn't live in the state, but he's representing the state.
No, yeah, he doesn't. He hasn't lived in California in over a decade.
That's
he just has a residence in the right district.
That's illegal.
Well, he claims it's his primary residence and that his family can live anywhere. So. Typical Democrat when it comes to the rules.
They find ways to. If they can't bend them, they break them.
Yeah.
When Bill Clinton and Al Gore Gump, and when they were in for re-election, they broke multiple campaign laws, and instead of being charged or prosecuted, the Democrats were calling, "We need comprehensive campaign finance reform. That's how you know that they've broken the rules. When they start breaking the law, they always talk about we need comprehensive or common sense reform of some type. So, although
Right.
usually they reserve common sense for restrictions they want to put on us, but not always.
It's like they're complaining about the healthcare system. Hello, Trump tried to change it, and you voted against that. So you're complaining about Obamacare, people.
Yep. Oh, they'll say it's not Obamacare.
Mhm.
It's actually Romney Care because they based it on what he did for Massachusetts, which is a lot of.
Yeah, but Obama was the one who created United Health. He was the one who gave them, what, $3 billion?
What Mitt Romney created for Massachusetts, Obamacare. Yeah, that's really similar.
But here's the problem. They say, oh, Republicans don't care about healthcare. Really? Then why do you steal their policies?
Yeah. Well, and there were many, many complaints about the HMO system, which created by another Democrat by the name of Ted Kennedy. So they always create the problem that they have another solution for down the road. They're always moving that ball down the field. They'll go backwards a little bit, but they rarely give up much ground because total control of your life and deciding, you know what, you're just so
we know
depressed,
better.
we're just going to have to kill you.
The liberal mentality. We know better.
We know better, and we're going to tell you.
Yeah.
The server
We're
hamster
educated.
was sleepy. Oh, that was you.
Yeah.
Sorry. Oh, that's private chat. I see there's 5 people watching. I think that's what that eyeball thing means over here. The what did Limbaugh call it years? Eyeball news. I don't remember. I stopped listening to him a long time ago, and then he got old and died. No, I think they killed him.
So in the latest round of people to quit, we had Christopher Wray quit. That's not a shock, right? He didn't want to be investigated by Kash Patel. Well, too bad, so sad.
We're coming after you anyway, buddy.
Yeah. Do you know who did you remember the audit on Hillary Clinton? Do you know who did that?
Yeah.
Comey's brother.
Yeah.
John Comey. So that's on Kash Patel's. He brought that up. So Kash Patel's got a list.
Good. Yeah, I think they need to not only go through the people that are still living, but they need to go through all the dead people too. And really, let's really get under what these crooks have been up to for decades.
Oh yeah.
I know we can't prosecute them, but the truth about them can finally come out, and we can go from there.
Ted Kennedy working with the Russians, which now I don't know if this is true or not. This is only something that I heard when I was in Vietnam, and remember this was 2006. So, and I wasn't allowed, and a lot of the people I spoke with wouldn't allow their conversations to be recorded, so I had to respect that. And they said Walter Cronkite was a Russian agent, along with a lot of American reporters.
Oh, yeah, Soviet agent. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean,
They're called agents of influence. And yeah.
Well, look at when I want to look up something. When Clinton got elected the first time, he did that grand tour of Eastern Europe and all these former Soviet countries, not the Soviet bloc countries, and these pseudo communist countries, and some of his best buddies were these communists. It's like,
goes back to Roosevelt.
They showed who they were decades ago, if you were paying attention.
Yeah, go back to Roosevelt. His secretary was a communist and a spy for Russia. Never prosecuted.
Well, it's like when McCarthy was looking for all these, communists.
McCarthy was right.
He was right. I think I think he was played though, right? He went after the wrong. People.
He was played by Truman.
Right. He went after the wrong people.
Truman
make people think, oh, the Red Scare is a real, and it was a real thing, but we were getting programmed to follow this other dancing monkey when the real problem was over here.
Yeah. it just shows you that you could just weaponize immature people but with name calling and start the ball rolling. You don't have to have facts. You just have to start a name calling contest and it's game over. The Democrats, they're the party of the obtuse and the immature, and they
like
really
that,
have
that
knuckle draggers.
Like that one clown at the hearing who got grilled so badly he had to put his hands over his ears.
I cry, yeah.
Yeah, he cried like a baby. I'm like, this is how you break them, ladies and gentlemen. You push them so badly. And it's nice to see who the real immature children are nowadays.
Do you know who the real Jacob Schiff is? He's the grandson of a defunct merchant banker. Now,
Who? Who?
A bank.
Well,
Adam
but who
Schiff.
did you say the real who was?
The real Adam Schiff.
Oh, Adam Schiff. Okay, sorry.
Okay, you know how he never talks about his real family?
Yeah.
You notice that? That's because his grandfather was a war profiteer.
Oh, like Mika Brzezinski's dad.
He sold arms to Japan in the 1930s. He pushed Japan to go to war alongside America and Russia against China. That's the war that started World War II, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
And
the
thing is, the
Sino-Russo War.
Yeah, with America and Japan as Russian allies. Yes.
Yeah.
And that was funded by and the thing is, that was a plot by the Schiffs to get back in, because they used to have they used to own the Schiff Merchant Bank in Russia that was taken by the Soviets. And they wanted to, and in order to try and get their fortune back, they started selling Russian arms into China as well. So they funded the war on both sides. Jacob Schiff. Yeah.
Border conflict. Excuse me. That was that was later. That's not the one I'm thinking of. Because that was 69. But
yeah, I think the last shipment. I think what happened was they lost a lot of money on the blockade of Shanghai. They tried to send arms through Vietnam in the south, and the Japanese sunk the shipping or something the Japanese had seized ships en route.
Yeah. See, the one I'm thinking of is, that was Russo-Japanese War.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there was the China and Russia, and I could have sworn there was something in the 19th century too.
There's three contributing wars that would have, if never happened, would not have led to World War II, right?
World War One being one of them.
Yeah, well, that's it. But that wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for a number of preceding factors, including the fact that there were a lot of people who wanted war, particularly Wilson, particularly in America. They wanted war in Europe to weaken Europe, so that America could become the dominant power.
Yeah. Well, you had, I think even the Crimean War played into some of that, because you had the start of the mid-19th century imperialistic powers. You had Russia late to the table, as it were, in the imperialistic crusades. The British Empire that was running, in some ways losing, in some ways gaining, as other ones were faltering.
Yeah.
And then you had America coming out of the 19th century, who hadn't really done anything except on the continent. Right? They had
a war with Spain.
It was Spanish-American War,
America.
Yeah.
And had enabled, and without which the war on Spain, you would seize the Philippines,
Well,
and
that's
Cuba,
the Philippines, Cuba, yeah, and something
Puerto
else,
Rico, yeah.
but not Mexico.
No,
well,
you
Mexico was
retreated.
independent
No,
by then, right?
yes,
Okay.
you retreated
Oh.
from most of
That
Mexico.
might help.
You kept New Mexico and Arizona and that,
Yeah.
and Texas.
Well, Texas they had already acquired.
But
from the
those were
Texas
states that
Revolution.
already had were rebelling against the Mexican Empire. Anyway,
That was the early 19th century.
yeah. But
I mean, Texas was a separate country for what, 2 decades?
yeah. But
Before-
I'm just saying, those countries were already rebelling against Mexico long before the Americans came.
Oh yeah.
You had multiple Comanche uprisings in Texas for independence.
Right. Right. And then Tejas was, it's most of, I think, modern Texas, but also parts of New Mexico, Oklahoma.
Yeah. The Rio Grande Agreement is what settled the American Texas War, yeah. American Mexican War, yeah.
When was Pancho Villa raiding? Was that early 20th century?
I can't remember now.
I thought that was.
But wasn't he a remnant of the Maximilian era? So yeah, it was towards the end of that era.
But anyway, what are your big three that you think? I mean, I know World War I because it set up the entire stage for World War II. But World War I was set up with all of the
the war in China.
What was the Triple Entente and all that crap, all those alliances?
Okay, the war in China and the struggle for Greek independence. Hold in, sorry.
All right, Anna, now what you got going on? We'll take a break on. We'll hit the pause on the history button. So, you got any UFOs flying around where you are? Because we ain't got shit on here.
No, not yet. I did see, although the other day yesterday actually, I did see some Black Hawk helicopters flying in the distance, and luckily it was only 2, not the usual ones I usually get a brief glimpse of every now and then. Because last time it was 5, this time it's 2. So I'm like, But then again, I'm not that far away. I'm nearby a small base. I'm nearby a small airport. It's like a very small airport called Falcon Airport. Not far from me. It's only about I want to say at least 5-minute drive. I want to say about a 5-minute drive from where I live. Very interesting stuff. I think that's more like used for like pilot training and all of that. But I have seen some warbirds like the P-50 Mustang, the biplane, I did see somebody own a Zero, which was pretty amazing to see in person.
Sounds like the Confederate Air Force, or whatever they call themselves these days. Yeah, and I saw some video on X today that supposedly is someone trying to shoot at one of these drones, that are flying around. And it's
kind of like what Roddy Piper did in They Live, because that little thing comes up in here and is like, "Are you here? Not in this alley, you're not," and shoots it down and everything. So good on that man. He has the right idea.
Yeah, but the shots didn't look right to me. They actually look like they're curving, and they're like single shot, and their bullets were moving way too slowly. So I don't know what they were shooting, but yeah, around here, I mean, people would shoot that, and you know, because there's a lot of space in between houses in those places. So but yeah, it's, to me, I think it's just the U.S. government's trying to get us to convince that there's aliens invading, so that they have an excuse to do something around the inauguration. Oh, sorry, we need continuity of government. We can't inaugurate the new president right now, so General Houthi wants to
create a crisis. Yeah, create a crisis.
It's all a bunch of bull crap. So there are no aliens. They're just at best there's a bend in the space-time continuum, and we perceive something from the future. But yeah, I don't believe in any aliens anywhere. So as much as I like science fiction and I like that to be true,
No,
I'm
it
not
was
one of these
gonna-
people who said space does not exist. That's
Yeah.
those guys are smoking. I don't know what, but in my opinion, but I don't think there's anything.
They're smoking cane toad skin.
And well, there's one where someone you can clearly see it's a drone and different types of drones, and with especially with the lights, with the small drones, you could have 4 or 5 really close together, have a light, and then one of them changes and it goes off, and So I think it's just something that they're trying everything to stay in power, right? They know they can smell their demise coming. They can't scare us with monkeypox and all that other garbage, and so
Bird
now
flu in
they're
the
trying to,
milk.
yeah.
They tried bird flu in the milk. Iranian
Yeah.
drones. Chinese spy craft balloons.
Yeah, it's all bull.
They let things happen so they have a crisis to resolve, and then
Or they
when
make 'em
things
happen.
spiral, yeah,
I mean, they've admitted that. Oh yeah, most of those provocateurs in the crowd, yeah, they were DC police. In fact,
yeah. And it's the same with these drones. Where they're coming from, well, people have tried to follow them, and they just fly them out to sea rather than land them at base. So, obviously, they're going to great lengths to disguise where these drones come from and who's really behind it. But
Yeah.
you're telling me America with sophisticated satellite system can't put up an aircraft to track these drones?
No. Well, that's because there are, right?
Yeah,
There's
because
no
exactly.
way. There's no way
They're
they're
out.
flying over sensitive airspace and not get shot.
Because
down
if they were flying,
they're
if
not
they were flying over air, because if you think about it, if they were flying over Area 51, you think they would be shot down right as they get to the.
Well, yeah, but they're
past
over
the gate.
sensitive airspaces.
Because
in New
remember,
Jersey and New York.
if you saw the sign at the Area 51 gates at each
Lethal
of them.
force will be
Yeah,
lethal
it's
force.
authorized.
Well, aside from that, there's also a no drone sign too. There's also a no drone
Yeah.
sign.
Well, yeah, they'll shoot that down too. But that's what I'm saying. Now granted, it's probably compartmentalized, right? So this group over here is doing it. This group over here that has access to the public doesn't know what this group's doing. They've just been told don't shoot at them. In my view, the only reason they would say don't shoot at them is because they're ours and they don't want them damaged. Because if they were anyone else's, if they were if they were really foreign, they'd shoot a few down. They would be on television, just like that stupid Chinese whatever that was supposed to be, the spy satellite or spy,
Which turned out to be a very sophisticated, but still a weather balloon.
Yeah, and they say here we go. So now, granted, you could say, well, there's also another possibility that we had some kind of unexplained event, right? We've had UFOs, and they're trying to capitalize on that and make it normal, right? I just think it's just they're trying their best to scare people because they know nothing else has worked and this ain't working. And I can't wait. I would love for someone to shoot one of them down and be all over Twitter or X. But here it is. And it says on the property, U.S. government, everything. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, but
Probably U.S. Air Force. Return to Pentagon if found.
Yeah, return to Pentagon if found. But people have tried to follow these things, and they go out to sea.
Yeah. Well, and now granted, they can go out to sea, they can get out of sight, they turn their lights off, they can circle back around, and anything that's got a drone that of a distance that great, that's got to be military because no civilian drone has capacity,
battery
has communication distance,
range or power. No civilian drone is allowed to have that level of battery power. You try and buy a large battery pack, and they'll slap you down.
Oh, or it'll weigh 300 pounds. It'd be
Yeah.
too heavy for the thing to lift. But
Yeah.
Yes, it's probably some Black Ops projects that's got crazy battery life or mini nuclear reactors or something on these things, but there's no
Well,
doubt
that's
in my mind that.
always a
And then it
possibility
could
that.
be, something that's 20 years ahead of us as far as what's on the market,
Well,
but
isn't
it's
that
US military.
isn't that the standard US practice for the military to have? Well, for a section of the military to have the most advanced technology, while the rest have to scrape by on dog biscuits from the Korean War.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it's probably not as true in the integrated circuit market, but there's been quite a bit of grumbling over the last year that quantum computing or quantum type computing is actually a reality. It's just extremely expensive. And what we see is the attempts to make it affordable. And so some things work and some things don't. I saw a thing, was it 2 days ago? They're talking about light. And it's like, I remember reading articles in the 80s, in the early 90s, talking about using lights. Optical computers instead of
Japan built one.
Wires. Now, granted, we don't use wires anymore. It's actually conduits, right? Because the thing is the circuits and transistors the gates are so small, they're just atoms, right? You can't get any smaller. Yeah. But that next step, I think it would not surprise me that the integrated circuit is a purely civilian function that they stumbled across. But the military aspects are something more advanced, but it's just, we're talking, a CPU that costs $1 million, right, to make one. That's not going to sell anywhere.
No, that's why a lot of the Japanese tech is still sitting on shelves, because the cost of making it. It's fantastic stuff, like the 3D projector, right?
Right.
Amazing technology, but amazingly enough, there was a time people did spend $10,000 on a TV, but that without it coming down, 3D technology is on its way out.
Yeah, you're flat. I remember. David, you probably remember these, the flat screen televisions in the late '90s, right?
Yeah,
but they weren't this thick. They were still like this, and they were $10,000 plus. Now they were big, and we had some HD signals. We weren't fully HD.
We were slowly going into it. Like we're slowly
but the
going
16 by 9 was there. The idea was there. And
I remember those. I remember the movie theater size TVs that we used to have. My grandfather had that, and you could just sit back and just be like, "Whoa!"
Yeah, I got a big screen. But the thing is,
I miss 3D. It when the big TVs, like when they had more thickness, like the more thickness, you could just set stuff on. But no, we gotta make them so thin your fatty cat won't be able to lay on it.
That's so that can be that's so that people can redistribute wealth on Black Friday.
You're not fat, you're fluffy and adorable.
But here's the thing, right? 3D TV was not HD compatible, still isn't HD compatible. It's on its way out. You look at how desperate they are. You've got huge discounting from, pretty much they're selling them at 10% of what they used to be charging for 3D TVs.
Yeah. Well, more than 10 years ago, man, maybe closer to 15. I remember seeing some things at like a tech trade show where they had a display that they could roll out. It was only about 8 to 12 inches long, but
I've seen them.
Yeah, right. And it's like you'll see these things. What's really crazy is you'll see something, or you'll think you'll see something, and then it's like, where'd it go? And then years later, it comes back, and it's like, did I really see that in 1989, or was I dreaming that?
I can tell you did.
But it was that prototype was probably $2 million to make that, and it took them 15 years to take that price from $2 million to 100,000.
Yeah.
And then, but because of 17 other breakthroughs, it took 5 years to go from the 100,000 to the 1,000.
Yeah. But some of these tech, like the rollout flat screen, they're using them in the military.
Oh yeah.
So, and they've been using them for 20 years. So you're not wrong. You did see them. It's just that when something gets appropriated by the military, it often goes back to R&D and the endless cash flow and the obsession with technological dominance to the point where they steal technology from every country.
Yeah. Well, and they covered that in the first Independence Day movie. Sorry, I'm trying to. But it's like they hide these budgets in. Oh, look, this copy maker in this airplane costs $137,000, right? It really only costs more than your average copy maker because it's solid metal and it has to be able to withstand differences in atmospheric pressures and other things that your coffee maker sitting on your kitchen counter doesn't have to deal with. But it's probably about $800.
Yeah. In 1947, some idiot revealed I think he was an idiot, revealed the existence of the alien technology program without realizing that the average American does not understand that the U.S. government refers to all non-Americans as aliens.
Right.
And that the alien technology program was
called
originally
migrants. They're displaced migrants, David. Quit calling them names.
Yeah, the original alien technology program was the whole justification for World War II was the looting of Germany and integrating their superior technologies into the US.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of truth to that. Once Hitler wouldn't play ball anymore, they decide, okay, well, he's gone off on his own too much.
Yeah.
Same thing that they're trying to do with China, right? Same thing they're trying to do with Putin. When he was playing ball with them, they were okay. You can do whatever, and then it's like, and of course, just like
Assad.
Assad. Anyway, although his thing collapsed. Well, it's a war. People say, well, it only took a week and a half. Well, it's a war. It's been going on for 11 years.
It was work in progress, yes.
Yeah.
It was just the fact that you had Turkish, also the fact you had 10,000 Turkish troops into Syria.
Yeah, well, Turkish troops, Israeli troops.
Yeah, I'm just saying the final nail in the coffin was the 10,000 Turks across the border.
Yeah,
and and
it's
probably
a few million now.
Yeah, and there was probably a few million here and there that went to some Syrian generals to say, "Send your troops home."
Yeah. You want to live longer than the next day and a half? Yeah.
You got 5 seconds to decide if you're going to live more than 5 seconds.
Saddam Hussein, they made deals with him. They said invade Iran and Iraq. No, he was in Iraq. Invade Iran, and then they pestered him. And again, when his time is up, same with Gaddafi. At least Gaddafi, they admitted. I mean, Hillary Clinton admitted it.
Yeah, straight up murder.
Yeah,
just because
his time was up. They wanted to get off the dollar and have their own. They thought, hey, I can go my own way now.
That was nothing to do with it. It was just straight up. We wanted to do it. It was straight up. Hillary decided that she didn't like him anymore.
Well, they needed to start the mass migration through Libya into Europe too, Italy, which they did.
Yeah, they wanted to. Yeah, America wanting to keep Europe down needed to.
The UN replacement migration piece.
Yeah, the UN replacement agenda. Yeah. Because the people like the Clintons, they're elitists. They think that society's better off when the plebs are eliminated.
Well, that's how you keep people in order, right? You can't have too strong and big a middle class. So you have to
keep destroying it. Keep destroying nations,
and making it look like it's somebody else's fault, so that we're always arguing with one another, so that we never figure out what's going on.
And right now, if they're pushing with this AI, the Afrocentric message that they were the original people, that Indians were black, Egyptians were black, Vikings were black. Yeah.
It's getting ridiculous.
Straight
But
out of the
again,
Nazi playbook.
but it's again to get people to concentrate on the differences and get us into some kind of race war. Because one group will say that's bull crap, other group will say no, this is gospel truth, and then we're fighting against other while the puppet masters just giggle.
Well, that's it. You know, the rich, once they finish robbing you, they can't have witnesses.
It's not all the rich.
I'm just saying, okay, the war profiteers.
Yeah, the profiteering scumbags, whether it's a war or not, because they also profiteer through, they tax the middle class to give subsidies to the poor, who somehow give money back to usually the Democrats, and so it cycles back to them. Ukraine, all these things. I know Ukraine, we're back to war again, but if they have various mechanisms to launder money to make it look like they're doing something for the greater good, fighting that enemy over there or providing air, and everyone stays miserable, and they somehow get fun.
The vast majority of Chiefs, they don't want to know the truth. They want their comfort. They want to be told they're good little plebs.
There is a lot who want to stay in that gilded cage and will fight you if you try to unlock it.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true.
Alistair, Huxley, if you saw his interview at Berkeley University and you saw what Berkeley University became, you'd ask yourself, what the F happened to Berkeley? Well, what happened was the CIA in Operation MK Ultra.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And you had a very grassroots actual peace movement, and then they took over it. Yep. It's so continuously the same kind of story, right? The militia movement of I guess it kind of started in the 80s, but it really started in the 90s. They were within the bounds of the Constitution. They were people who love their country, but of course they don't have time to do everything. And they get infiltrated by the FBI and others. And now pretty much every militia is just run by some FBI wonk somewhere. And that's why they kind of died off, because it's like they got overrun. Some people figured it out. Enough people figured out that, hey, I don't want to be a part of this because they're going to con me into doing something. The biggest blunder, if you will, was the Whitmer kidnapping attempt. But this is what they'll do.
Well, that exposed it, yeah.
Right.
But that exposed it to the mainstream.
Correct. But you get, our budget's going to get cut. We got to go do something. We got to blow up, Oklahoma City building. We got to do this. And it's all FBI run, every single one of them.
Yeah.
And, look, a budget's
oh, no. And meanwhile, Hillary and Bill say, oh, no, all the evidence against us goes up in smoke.
Yeah, all the whitewater evidence just gets blown up as well. And that's why I'm I'm hopeful, David. I'm really hopeful that this time around it's really going to happen. And so, and I know there's going to be if it were, there'll be a lot of, as I said, I want to expose even the historic people who are gone, because pretty much a lot of people. I shouldn't say a lot of people. I find it interesting how many more people over the last few years I've come across who understand what Woodrow Wilson really did, right? Whether he recanted or not, how he sold the country out. And it's like, okay, that's great. That's 100 years ago, right? And so we can't affect that. But we can start exposing stuff that's only 40 years old, 50 years old, even if those people are gone. Because I don't know how much of it is. It almost feels like a perpetual motion machine, right? That people get sucked into this whirlpool, and they can never. Some people love it and they stay in it, and other people are like, I can't get out of this, and they just kind of succumb to it,
A lot of people, when they don't know the truth, they go along with the mainstream because they think that consensus is the best model for the truth.
Yeah. Well, and I'm saying even when some people find out what's really going on, but because they're benefiting, that's what I'm saying. Some people love it, like the Clintons.
But
and other people feels.
I'm not just saying about the Clintons. I'm talking about the government employees.
Oh, yeah.
law enforcement, the vast majority of law enforcement, if they quit, the system falls apart,
Yeah.
But
So
what do they do for
it'll be
jobs?
interesting.
Yeah.
To me, it'll be interesting to see what Trump and his group, RFK and others can. Because you and I are old enough. Well, you live in Australia, so it's probably your food is probably a little bit more real than what we've got. But I've even started to see not just Fruit Loops in the U.S. versus Fruit Loops in Europe. It's here's Fruit Loops in the U.S. in '89, and here it is now. Here's ice cream 25 years ago. Here's that same brand now, but it's not all that way because look, back in the late 70s and early 80s, well, for a long time, Dr. Feingold had a thing called the Feingold diet. A lot of it was around ADHD, what we call ADHD, or ADD back then. And he was like BHA, BHT, all the same stuff, right? They're suddenly, red dye number 5 can really kill you. All these things he was complaining about 50 years ago. So it's, what sugar does to the body has been known probably for 70 years.
The thing is, and we had it here in Australia too, the anti-sugar movement almost took off here in Australia, disposing not just how evil the sugar companies are. And did you know how the sugar company and how the sugar, I mean, I hate to say it, but one of the largest sugar conglomerates is an Australian company, but they make their money selling asbestos.
Yeah. Well, and the thing too, in my understanding as well with sugar, there's also there's the old way to process the white sugar that's less harmful than some of the more modern, cheaper techniques. And the thing about it is too, and this is where I don't know where to draw the line. Quite often, like asbestos, a product gets created.
Yes.
It has, but asbestos has flame retardant properties and some other stuff. We don't know what we don't know, right? We know that we do our experimentations, we see this, maybe we see some off-gassing, and maybe we're detecting something, but we don't know what that something does. But some of that stuff they find out before, and I'm going blurry for some reason, before things come to the market that it's really bad, but they're able to hide it. But quite often it's decades later, and instead of admitting, or instead of saying, this product we were making has these problems, but this other product is actually better. It's slightly more expensive, but it doesn't have the harm of this one. Instead of slowly taking this one off the market and doing this, they'll go, we're going to get rid of this one and we're going to double down over here. And then they pay off. It's cheaper to pay off the government to not get sued. Why am I blurry?
Now,
am I blurry or is it me?
No, that's you. Your eyes.
My eye.
Okay.
No, you look crystal clear.
Here's the problem with asbestos. Here's the problem with asbestos. They already knew from asbestos miners about asbestos lung. Okay.
Well, no,
they already had asbestos. It's like coal lung. Okay, they knew about the miners were getting sick, and they were getting lymphatic growths on their lungs, but they did nothing. Okay, and you're right. It's cheaper to pay off the government, and eventually it's cheaper to settle the lawsuits than it is to admit wrongdoing and take products off the shelf. And then, of course, you had the cashing in on cleaning up asbestos, which became a big cash industry in the 80s and 90s.
Oh, yeah, I remember those things. And the thing about my understanding, too, about asbestos, I guess it was the late 90s. I think there were several different types.
Yes.
It's actually my understanding in many areas, the types that one or two types that were really the really harmful ones was extremely low percentage of stuff in use. But, once it was all in the same boogeyman boat, I think I'm seeing double. But these are new glasses.
There's no safe level. Okay, what there is low risk exposure and high risk exposure, but all asbestos is cancer causing.
Okay, so that's what it is. It's kind of like the lead paint scare that people still freak out about. I can't. I don't know of a single kid when I was growing up who was eating paint chips. Not a single one. And I don't know a single person that was harmed by the lead in the paint from because they didn't eat it. But you could have the off gassing in a
Remember,
house. But that's why you painted over.
They didn't want to admit that the only people who were affected were the gas fitters and miners and the other people working with asbestos. It had no effect on the people in the house. There was no,
They were working with the raw stuff.
Yeah.
It's kind of like your fiberglass insulation, right?
Yeah.
As long as you're not up in there actually putting it in the house or rolling around in it or anything, you're not going to get that in your lungs.
Yeah.
You can go up in your attic, walk around, nothing's going to happen. But when you've got it flailing around, you better be wearing something over your face.
Yeah. Well, it's the same with any product, okay? Balance the risk. If you know it's dangerous and you know how to take precautions, I think there should be regulations. But the problem is we're regulating lettuce, but not asbestos. We're regulating drones for civilians, but we're all at the same time, we're stifling innovation, where you try and it's almost if, and a lot of people have said it and start to realize it, that we've been herded in a direction.
Yeah.
That there's more regulations on milk and lettuce than say.
Well, it's because they find bird flu in milk. They don't find it in asbestos, David. See, that's the problem. If we can wave a magic wand in the air and say there's bird flu in your milk and your lettuce.
Yeah.
And I'm not being facetious. They are literally waving a magic wand. But see, that also scares people more, right? If I know that there's asbestos or lead paint, let's say, on the wall,
but see,
and I can mitigate it or get rid of it. But if I don't know which head of lettuce in the grocery store has E. coli on it, that's a bigger gamble. It can be one head of lettuce and a big pile of 200 heads of lettuce. But if there's E. coli on one, that's a bigger gamble in mine because I'm going to the store every week to get a head of lettuce. The asbestos is already either in the walls or taken care of. It's out of sight, out of mind. But my lettuce is in my face every week.
Yeah. But my point is that they're going after milk and lettuce so that they can force you to use soy products and kale, right? Replace milk with soy, replace lettuce with kale. It's nothing to do with lettuce. It's got nothing to do with E. coli. And isn't it amazing how they go after don't eat chicken because of salmonella?
Right. And kale's only good when cooked in bacon grease. I'm sorry. Get the baby kale, put it in bacon grease. That's the only thing it's good for. Well, kale chips are pretty good too, but especially with Parmesan.
But again, this is just look, just so much market manipulation by activist groups. That's why they're so well funded.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
I'll move this over here.
It's long overdue. People woke up and realized that activists are professional market manipulators. Okay.
Can you see everybody in my glasses?
Yeah.
Can you see yourself, anime? If I stare at the screen? Yeah.
Yeah,
anyway.
That's all these activists are. They're manipulating the market. They're not actually out there to help you.
We started on UFOs, went to World War II, and now we're talking about lettuce. It's amazing.
Oh, I'm just saying.
I do see it blurring.
It's all connected.
I do see your camera blurring there, Channel Dad. Mine does that too from time to time. I don't know.
It does when he moves. It stops when you move. When you stop moving, it refocuses.
Yeah, and I'm trying to break my new glasses in.
Yeah.
If I start seeing double with them, I'm really going to be bad because I don't have any prisms in these. I haven't had prisms in 20 years. But anyway.
But it's the same thing. Whether it's
when I sit here, I have 2015 vision, actually.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I say it just did it. No one was watching. But anyway, but see, I think it's the things that hopefully I haven't moved this far away to kind of answer my answer to your sort of question is these things that are in our lives more have either more regulations or more fees, tax. It's like gas, right? We all, well, not everyone, but many people have to get gas once a week, some far more regular than if we are going to go buy a gallon of paint to paint a bedroom or something, right?
Yeah.
And so, or other things. And that gallon of fuel, we'll say fuel because it could be diesel. The regulations on it and fees, the hidden taxes and fees and other things, depending on whose numbers you want to look at, are somewhere between 50 to 80% of the cost that you're paying.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is in Australia, but the U.S.
it's around 60.
Okay, the gas station has stopped making the even if it's a name brand. You go to Exxon or Texaco or whatever.
They make 3 cents per liter here. That's on the disclosure. Yeah.
Right. And then if they're an independent gas station, they probably make even less. But this is why when you go into them now, because I'm old enough to remember you stopped at a gas station, if they had a rack of things of peanuts and maybe a bag of chips and a soda machine, that was rare. And it would, you had about 4 choices, if you were going to try to get a snack. Now it's practically a grocery store, right? You can get bread, you can get lunch meat.
Most of them are owned by grocery outlets.
85,000 different varieties of soda in bottled water.
And your poison, yeah.
And then you can even get motor oil. I mean, what's a gas station that makes sense, but you can get some other things you might see in it's like a mini grocery store, right? You can get creosote logs and all kinds of crap. So, but that's where they make their money, right? And they sell lottery. So if you have a state lottery or whatever, here in Tennessee, it's not. I don't think we have one, but when I lived in Ohio, and they have them, that's where they're making their money. The amount of money they make on the gas can barely keep the lights on, and in my view, that's happened for a variety of reasons. Some of them organic, many of them organic, but
mostly by activists to control.
Right. But to come back around to the point, and I know it sounds like I'm pointing my fingers at one party because I know that because for the most part it's Democrats, but there are some Republicans that have fallen under this Mitt Romney and others, Liz Cheney. Establishment, we'll say, with establishment representatives, no matter what party they're in, know that. And so they also know that, okay, if the average person is spending, let's just for round numbers, let's say that, because I remember when I used to do a lot of commuting 20 years ago, I had $20 a week. So this will tell you how long ago it was to fill my gas tank. I had that was when I was still driving the Nissan Sentra. Okay. The early 2000s. I was commuting from the northern part of Cincinnati to almost to Dayton every day for a programming job. When I don't remember what the amounts were, but when gas prices were low enough, I could literally fill my tank, and there was this gas station along the way that I liked stopping at because it was easy to get on and off the interstate quick and everything else. And when gas prices were favorable, I could go in, pay my $20 with $20, fill up my gas tank, which I think was probably around somewhere between 12-ish gallons. I don't know, somewhere 12, 14. Small car, right? So I would have enough to get at least there was this trail mix stuff. I had sunflower seeds and M&Ms and peanuts and crap like that. When it was a little bit lower, there was something else. It was it was some other crackers. I used to, because I'm driving, I'm hungry, right? I get that. When gas went up a little bit, I couldn't get any of it. And there's the cynical side of me that's saying these politicians know this. And so when they and whether it's a state politician or federal, it doesn't make any difference. So when they, to your point, they do some regulation, they change some environmental impact nonsense, and your cost per gallon goes 30 cents higher. Okay.
Now, their justification is on the macro level. On the micro level, they don't care who gets hurt, right? If I don't make a profit, they don't care.
But
right?
see, it's almost
just
like
the
they
market.
know that gas station now just lost $1 million in revenue a month.
Yeah, but they don't care because on the macro level,
right?
They see the
I
market.
think they care. I think it's on purpose, right? Because if they can get that gas station to go out of business, then that again, we are the carbon they want to reduce. They want to take our fuel away. They can make it look like market forces blame capitalism.
That's right.
When it is just government bullshit.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to explain. Okay, they on the macro level, they justify to themselves by saying, "Look, the economy's up." On the micro level, they don't care if I fail. Okay, because they see my failure is as a market correction. Okay, they say that your ideas, or you as a writer, or you as a as a Etsy store owner trying to sell coffee mugs or whatever, you fail. Therefore, your ideas are bad. But the thing is, they don't have a justification for suppressing people. Okay.
Yeah.
And they
you failed in a rigged market. Right.
Yeah. Because what we have is a rigged market. We don't have capitalism. We have cronyism, where the middlemen like Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, and Google control at 90% of the advertising, and the vast majority of their clients spend more money on advertising than they make in basically the big companies, right? Like Bezos, they rake in billions of dollars in advertising, but their clients only don't make a big profit. They're taking most of their profit off them. And because the government is pretty much funded by these mega corporations, and I don't mean, the donations, because that is how they justify it. They say, oh, well, but these big companies, they're mega donors, they're just good for the community. So they always have some, and again, people are in their gilded cage. They don't want it unlocked. They don't want to know that they're kept in the dark and that they're a mushroom, kept in the dark and fed shit.
That's background. Sorry, I was going to click on something. Well, and oh no, that's not funny anymore. Appalachian needs to add up some. He needs to put some more things in here, because it is all I got is this. This one. This one's old.
How dare you!
But it is. You have most of the government is run by activists. Okay, most of it.
Well, yeah. And it's a big cycle, right? Because then you find out most of those activists are run by
corporations,
FBI, CIA. Well, it's through the corporation sometimes. Sometimes it's through other intermediaries, and then it gets to the activists, and it comes back to Congress, who then we need more. It's like I've said multiple times. When your budget is based on finding boogeymen, you will find them whether they exist or not.
That's right. If you make profit off hammers, you're not going to. If your only profit is hammers, you're not going to.
There we go.
You're not going to. Right. You're going to hammer every nail. That's it.
Sorry. So, Anime Man, you've been quiet for too long, man. What's going on?
So,
no, I'm just listening. I am just listening.
So what's wild in Arizona today? What's happening?
You said you had a wild night last night. What the heck does that mean?
Oh, we were watching. I was hosting the Game Awards last night. I had it on my channel, and it went good. I was happy with the contenders. I'm glad they didn't go through with giving the Game of the Year to a DLC. I'm happy they didn't go that route. That was a smart move. I'm like, you do, and keep in mind, this was their 10th year anniversary too of the Game Awards.
Oh wow!
Yeah. But we had fun last night. Lots of people showed up. We talked about like our favorites. We saw some new games come out and everything. Astrobot won it because it won some good awards, and I say very well deserved, because we need more family games out there nowadays. I know Nintendo has it, but it's nice to see something else be just as fun as that. And I thought it was a lot of fun. And just seeing like some new and up and coming games do its thing. And thank God Call of Duty and Fortnite didn't. They got nominated, but they didn't win. So I'm happy about that. I'm happy the new stuff got their chance to shine and let the other people stand aside. So, all in all, I say the Game Awards was a good one. There was a few things I did not like, but overall, it didn't ruin my experience too much. And also, I had a few people who haven't seen the Game Awards. They got a good experience. So I was pretty happy about that.
Sorry.
But it was we had a great time. What a great way to end the year. I am ready for 2025 though. Hopefully things do go better, because we have a long road ahead of us in terms of everything. You okay, Lape? You okay?
I'm fine.
You just threw your glasses down like
no, it's I haven't. All right,
whoa.
David, you all right? He's
Whoa,
all red.
David, your face is red.
He's trying to get over his cold flu, whatever he's got.
Oh man, David,
Government sprayed him with crap overnight. So. No, I haven't worn glasses other than the drive in years, and so I've got to get used to these.
David.
Yeah, he's gonna go cough, but yeah, it's speaking of games though, man.
Anyway,
I wish I wish I remembered it. I saw something the other day. Well, you know how GTA 5 on the PC, you've got to put that kernel level virus on your machine called
I'm not
BattleEye.
Okay?
Right.
I haven't. I've been half tempted to download GTA 5, but with everything that I've heard about from this thing, it's like, do I want to compromise my PC any further?
Right. No, this was I saw an article. It wasn't BattleEye does something similar, but I think it's EA. There's apparently at least three competing kernel level anti-cheats, and
De Novo is one.
Right, and they're starting to interfere with one another. And one of them, if it detects another one, I thought it was EA's. I wish I would have kept. It was one of these things I was kind of looking, and I saw this article, and then I meant to copy the URL and read the whole thing, because I only read a little bit, and then I screwed up. But what's made me giggle is they're starting to detect one another, and you have to uninstall, and one of them will not uninstall. It says it uninstalls, but it can't put the kernel back to the way it was, and so it still has it. That's why I call it a virus. These are not anti-cheats. They don't work. They've all been circumvented as far as catching cheaters, and all they do is report back to whatever company about your hardware and what you're doing. They've also intercept. They're encrypted, but they've intercepted packets that are way too large, and it's sending packets even when you're not playing the games that these anti-cheats are for. And it's just a matter of time for someone breaks the encryption, and then we'll really know what they're sending about what you're doing. And I really wish gamers would get their heads out of their butts and say no to these companies and make them feel.
Well, I have.
Yeah, I miss playing GTA 5. I miss playing it a lot, but there is no way.
Oh, I do
I'm
too.
buying Windows to play that game.
Exactly, and it's like
it's kind of.
And all they have to do, all Rockstar has to do, is send an email to BattleEye to enable it for Linux, and it'll work on Steam Deck again. But in Linux, it cannot be a kernel level thing, and that's why they won't do it. That tells me that they are spying on their players.
And for what purpose? And who
I
is
don't
paying
know.
them?
I don't know.
Yeah,
But if they
exactly.
refuse to enable something that's not kernel level, and it literally is an email, corporate email, it's all it takes. No money, no nothing. And if they won't do it, and we have a lot mounting evidence that this thing is sending packets back home when you are not playing the game that they're designed for, and they interfere with one another because they are, to your point, Anime, they are changing your kernel to the point where they can't put it back, and who knows what else they're doing. They're compromising your PC. The only company that should be able to change the kernel of your Windows machine is Microsoft. Period.
Mm-hmm.
And and it's part of why I don't run Windows for a lot of stuff is because it does stuff as well. But it sends back, although there's something that they made a standalone app. I forget what it was some kind of Copilot thing, but it's not the Copilot. It's something else. What was that thing that was always taken in Windows 11? They finally had to disable it because it's taking snapshots of your screen like every 5 seconds and sending it to some cloud-based recall.
I didn't have my PC at the time around that time that was happening. I got it afterwards because I did hear about
who thought
it.
that was a good idea? I mean, anyway,
I felt offended by it.
So and then on the other side of it, you're like, well, then I'll just do console gaming. Who's to say they're not doing the same nonsense in consoles? They just haven't been found out as readily, right? But yeah, it's annoying. Yeah, who knows why? But it's pretty bad. But because I had contemplated, because you can there's websites that sell Windows 11 keys that are legit. Okay. Because I was asking someone, where do they get these numbers? But apparently a lot of it comes from, somebody buys 1,000 copies of Windows but doesn't need them all, and people sell them.
OEM keys. A store gets not 1,000 copies of Windows, and they go out of business, and the OEM keys get sold to a retailer, reseller.
Well, it's like the days you used to be able to buy Windows on, because I've got a copy of Windows 98 SC that I bought off of eBay. That was from some body. It was a legit, it's a completely legit copy of Windows. Yeah. eBay gets really pissy about it. It is an OEM, so you have to buy it with hardware. So I had a hard drive that I bought with it. But I mean, to your point, place goes out of business. They've got a box. They've got 10 boxes.
10,000 boxes. Yeah, they've got boxes of Windows keys.
They got 10 boxes of Windows 98 with 500 copies in each box, and somebody buys it for $200 and sells each one for $30, right? And I ran that on several different computers because basically it kind of migrated with my kids until they got older.
Speaking of old versions of Windows, I heard this recently, not just about Windows, but a lot of your government systems deliberately run old versions of Windows, because all their software, it's all their software tailor made to that. So you're going to have, and yet Microsoft wants to cut everything off. And again, this is justified by macroeconomics. We've got to meet our growth targets. We've got to sell more. But on the micro level, at what cost is the government going to have? Because, pretty much the government's carrying Microsoft on their back, Yeah.
Yeah, and they're not the only ones. A lot of airline industry stuff has got, you
got these huge databases that will take years to reprogram because the operating systems are not straight compatible.
Yeah. Well, in the early days, first several decades of computers, that was it was costly but straightforward.
Yes.
This is why a lot of times people rented computers from IBM and others, because the computers were so expensive.
Yes.
But once the price came down on all that stuff, the software side exploded. And so where it was, we need to convert our 30 applications on our mainframe to the new mainframe, it's hundreds or thousands depending on the size of the company. And
but most of those companies then their software was hi, we have the source code. Now it's oh wait, what do you mean Data Digital's out of bank? What do you mean they're bankrupt? How are we going to convert our database?
Yeah, that's another problem. Where this is when I worked at McCullough back in the late '90s.
Yeah,
we had they were a victim of their own success. Mm-hmm. They had a DOS version of the software that outsold the Windows version almost 8-1. Yeah. And the DOS version used Btrieve. They were Windows and Btrieve kind of had arguments and things only sort of worked. They were trying to move to Squealy server and some other stuff, but they had the Windows version. So this would have been, this Windows. So I moved there in '97. So I started working there in '97. So '98 wasn't even out yet, but NT3 was, right? And they were trying to get off of, and the Windows version they had was Windows 3, not even Windows 95. And they were using Micro Focus COBOL, which isn't necessarily bad in itself, but the windowing package, right, to do the GUI stuff, because this was back with Windows 3, and it wasn't as true with 95, and moving forward it was all the Microsoft stuff. You didn't have to get a third-party package. This is where MFC and some other stuff came in. That GUI package they used, that company went out of business. And when it was going out of business, they went to that company and said, we'll give you X dollars for your source code, essentially. They never updated it. But because it was cheaper and very short-sighted, because they're out of business. Well, McCullough ES is around, but it's not the company I work for. It's just a name. It's owned by a Dutch company now. But when I moved there and I found out this town, I was like, why in the hell would you obviously made a bad choice in that the GUI library company that you purchased has gone out of business because it's not any good. So instead of saying we got to move,
update,
they update it. Plus, the operating system is now updated twice, right? It's split off of. So you had Windows for work groups. You had which was only a minor upgrade. You had Windows
and didn't last long,
right? Windows NT. We had our software ran on, and the program I was working on was Report Writer, which was supposed to be a true 32-bit application. True, put that in air quotes because it still ran on Windows 95. But the NT version was a true 32-bit application, but it was to retrieve your reports out of the data that our system produced. That, for the most part, was a DOS program, and mainly because, and I understand. I, as a developer, know why these things happen and what happened. But it's essentially code is too tightly coupled, right? Your user interface and your business logic's all intertwined. So that's why this DOS program can't just be, let's just replace the interface with Windows. Well, if you did it right, you could. Well, quite often it's done that way because it's a little bit faster and a little bit cheaper at the beginning. So again, short-sightedness gets to people all the time. But anyway, so Windows is progressing along. So by the time we got to have a decent piece that ran a Windows 3.5, Windows 4 was out, NT4 was out, and it was a disaster. And so with I think it was version 4, with NT4, only the odd number service packs worked. So Service Pack 2 screwed up everything. Service Pack 3 was good. 4 was almost as bad as 2, but not quite. And then 5, and this is kind of like the thing with the Star Trek movies where only the even number ones are good. It was the odd number one. But
I think that's with Windows. All the, isn't it?
And so now
with Windows,
it's like, right, and it's like you work on
the odd ones.
But the underlying the biggest underlying problem was the DOS version of the software. And I mean, here's how bad it was. Because I did some web stuff, and then I was doing some other pieces with the port writer. We were literally reading COBOL code to understand the business logic of what we needed to build in C++.
Mm-hmm.
That's how stupid it got before I was asked to go excel somewhere else, in which case I said, I will gladly go. And they paid me, and I've mentioned it before. I won't say how much, but 2.5 months salary to leave. And I said goodbye because I hate it here. But that's, and so now if you have a company that started building stuff especially a company that's been around a while, 40s, 50s, 60s. I mean, airline industry is one I always bring up because with my working at AAA, I encountered this firsthand. But if you ever go, next time, if you ever fly again somewhere, especially in the U.S., I don't know how true it is outside of the U.S., but if you go and go and ask about something about your flight at a gate agent in particular, but the first, what do they call it?
It's an old, outdated system.
Right. They will be typing for days to answer one question. And why is that? Because it's based off of the keystrokes of a text-based system written in the 60s that's running in emulation. So they're using most likely, they've got a Windows machine with a DOS window using a communication software written in the 80s, talking to something written in the 60s, and it's a zillion keystrokes. Whereas if it was a new program, it would be click, click with the mouse, and we have an answer.
Now, there are some airlines who have updated, but not many.
And stuff written in the 60s is running in an emulator because the hardware doesn't exist anywhere on the planet anymore.
No. But what they do is they justify it by saying, yes, but it can't be virused.
Yeah,
Or can't be
but
hacked.
ask Delta what can happen when something goes wrong, and it took all their ticketing agents down worldwide for what? How many hours? Remember that a few months ago?
Well, especially when you get a system you can't back up. Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's a system you can't back up and you can't reboot.
There's no redundancy. There's no failover.
There's no independent. There's no independent sites because no site has data. They're just all they're just terminals.
One thing goes wrong,
Dumb terminals.
It all goes down.
But that's the problem, on one hand, you got a system that's constantly pushing innovation, whether you want it or not. And if you can't keep up, you get pushed out of the way.
Yeah.
Because you have. But on the other hand, you have a redundant, obtuse, recalcitrant, old school establishment who sit there with their old accounting books and their quills and their horsehair wigs.
Right, you hit the nail on the head. What kind of books?
Yeah.
What kind of books did you say?
Accounting books. Old leather-bound accounting books.
It all went downhill when the engineers retired and the accountants took over.
Yeah.
Every tech company that has that happen, some of them survive. IBM and others have survived that turmoil. But part of why NVIDIA is kicking so much butt is it's no longer run by an accountant.
The technicians took over.
Yeah.
NVIDIA. They ousted the accountants.
Intel is they lost $16 billion in one quarter. They haven't been run by an engineer in decades.
No.
I don't know how a chip maker like Intel, you have to work at losing $16 billion in one quarter. It's not an accident. You have to really be good at losing money.
Or look at in the gaming spectrum. Look at Concord, lost 400 million.
Sony.
How do you do that? How do you do that?
Easy. An activist at Sony says to an activist at Concord, Here's all the money in the world. Go do as you please. It's all rainbows and fairies. Don't worry about it.
But
Yet
it's-
when you and I lose money, we get
We go.
we get
We
fired.
lose our
We
jobs.
get the
We
Billy
lose everything.
Billy Club. Yeah, we get the Billy Club. And the cops hold us down face first in the dirt while shouting at us in
No,
handcuffs
usually
and
there's an
everything.
audit. There's usually an audit. You know, companies don't lose $400 million. $400 million is wasted or stolen, misappropriated.
Yeah.
Same with
Well, it's
Intel. You
probably
don't
both.
lose $16 billion. It's misappropriated, misspent, probably both.
Yeah. Well, because it and to your point, Anime, I've been fired several times over my 56 years on this planet, and not once had my incompetence risen to the level where I was allowed to lose the company money before I was fired, right? Or, excuse me, asked to resign or leave on my own accord. I've not even gotten to the point where I was endangering a project, and I was dismissed. So, granted, all but probably the McCullough hire, you could say, was a misalignment. Oh, do we have a real comment? But this is that coffee stream bot. That's the only thing that's been commenting. But yeah, I don't know. Can I see? Do I have to see our show stream in chat in X in order to see if people are commenting?
I'm not sure. I'm sure. I actually believe people can't comment on X. I think there's a problem with X comments at the moment where only verified users can comment. And I don't think the comments are coming through StreamYard.
Okay. Looks like who's Penny? They reposted the post.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, we picked up a follower somewhere on X who reposts. That's about it.
Yeah, I'm gonna put well, here's the announcement. I think it's the stream. It's the broadcast link.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see if my comment comes through over here.
I'm going to give it a minute.
Yeah, I mean, because it says 25 people are watching, but no one's commenting. Especially some of the stuff we've been talking about. Surely somebody would be like, "You guys are full of horse shit." Well, that's fine.
Yeah,
but,
just call our opinion a piece of crap.
Maybe they're laughing so hard. Yeah, maybe they're laughing so hard.
Well, that's fine. That's fine.
That's fine.
It's every once in a while I get really opinionated on LinkedIn, and there's this guy. His first name's Mike. I won't say his last name, but he runs a Scrum, supposedly a Scrum training company. I say supposedly Scrum because what he teaches is not Scrum. And there was something he posted. This was it was right before all my computer problems started. So maybe I brought the gremlins on myself. And he's given this analogy to something. I won't go into details. I don't want to bore anybody. And it's a stupid analogy. And it's so dumb that after watching the video, I replied something like, Mike is wrong in every video, and this video is no exception. And then for 20 minutes, because it wasn't cold that night, I let the dogs out, and I'm standing on my front porch, pacing back and forth, waiting for them to finish. And I'm going through every piece of his analogy as if I was talking to a crowd of people to tell you how bad his analogy is and what's wrong with it and what doesn't work. This is all related to building and software. And see my comment. Okay,
you replied to the post, not in the comment box on the side, the chat box.
Chat box on the side of what?
The broadcast.
Oh, broadcast.
You got to click the broadcast link.
Oh, is that what I have to do? Oh,
yeah.
The X broadcast link. Oh,
yeah.
Oh, there it is. All right, I better make sure it's muted so I don't get echoing. Oh, here.
Yeah. Do I see it? That's it.
All right, excellent. But
That's why a lot of comments aren't seen, because people reply underneath, and it's like, no, that's that.
Yeah, I didn't know that. So learned something.
No, I
But-
didn't. Look, a lot of people don't know that. So because X is still trying to find its feet, I think.
But it was an interesting kind of diatribe I had with me and the trees. But what was great about it is he was talking about you usually find these in arcade. It's called Pop-A-Shot. Usually it's a basketball shooting game, but it was right up my alley. Right, this guy, I don't think he was ever an athlete. I'm still not convinced he has ever written any software in his life. But and then the true Scrum apologists actually make fun of him and point out all of his mistakes on stage and conventions. So I'm not the only one, right? But what was great about it is I was able to use his exact analogy to show the 9 different ways he was incorrect about what Agile does. And Scrum and Agile are not the same thing. And it's like, no wonder your snake oil didn't work. But I don't even remember how I got on this diatribe. But it was an interesting discussion with me. And like I said, it was just out on the front porch meandering, going, okay, this is dumb. This is actually more important. They're talking about speed. But and this is how the software gets written poorly. And I've heard more than one pundit say for the last probably almost 20 years now, software may be the most misnamed product ever in human history, because it's very difficult to change. There's nothing soft about it. the original idea was the hardware was hard to change, but the program wasn't. And then originally that was pretty close to true. But to David's point, the hardware keeps, every time we turn around, look at the intricacy of the CPUs now, where you've got this latest thing is like you'll have 18 cores on a chip, but 12 of them are performance. What do they call it?
Performance managers.
Right. Well, there's some of them that will get more watts and go faster. Then there's some that are fixed that only come in as like overhead, almost like a turbo boost. Right. A handful of years ago, they all ran at the same speed, but now they're all running at different speeds depending on what they're doing.
Yeah, because you've got a core for the OS, you've got memory management, you've got video management, and
look at a memory module. Look at the microcode in a memory module. Literally, memory modules have more coding power than a Commodore 64, and it's just a stupid memory module. But to keep it straight and do prefetching and understand that the CPU is going to need this block of memory next, so it moves it internally, so it's a shorter distance. This is why Apple in their in their Apple Silicon stuff, why you have to order it with however much RAM. You can't order extra because they've reduced it's all printed on the same circuit.
It's set, yeah.
Right. So the distance is smaller because the 1/4 inch distance their memory has to travel, as opposed to on a typical PC, it could be up to 2.5 inches away.
Yeah.
Is orders of magnitude too slow. Not, it's like, oh, it's 5% faster. No, it's like 200% faster. It's insane. That's how small, if you ever go see Admiral Grace Hopper, when she is talking about, it's a great thing on YouTube. It's the early 80s. She's talking about a nanosecond, I think. And she has a piece of cord, it's about yay long. I don't know. 8 inches, something like that. And they're talking about the time it takes, because you're talking about a computer, a mainframe in particular, is multiple boxes, right? It's not multiple chips. It's boxes.
Multiple chips and multiple boxes.
This box and this box at the top, and it's 8 feet electric cable in between. That's horrendously slow. And it's like, okay, we still have the same concept of that's horrendously slow, but now that distance is inches, or less.
But here's the problem that
the hardware has changed drastically, and we still like but we still write software like it's 1968.
Yet Well, that's it. Because what
And that date is not chosen
look,
at
no
random.
offense to you, my programming skills suck. Right? My programming skills suck. Okay, I'm not very practiced. I'm out of date by magnitudes of because I just can't keep up. I have
Well,
difficulties.
the languages, we keep getting languages, but the Symposium of Computer Science in 1968 from Garmisch-Partenkirchen, go get a copy of that. That is everything we're still doing. Everything.
But here's the problem I have with my software. It's not written for the average man to customize. It's written for the uber geek to create and lock everybody else into that one model. And everybody else has to follow
Wix
that one
and others
model.
are changing some aspects of that, but that's right, because Alan Kay had a great idea in the early 70s.
But it's challenging.
And no one believed him.
Yeah. But you're not challenging software.
85 million different directions that have nothing to do with it. If they would have listened to him, we'd be 60 years ahead of where we are now.
Yeah. We would have had Unreal Engine 20 years ago if it wasn't for the
Anime Night. Look up Alan Kay, inventor of small talk and true object-oriented programming.
But what's it for? It's
right. So that was your point, David.
Yeah.
Right. He had 12-year-olds writing software without writing a line of code, creating their own apps, creating their own games, creating their own graphical stuff. And this is in the early 70s. So that graphics were bad. And that thing cost $80,000 of 1972 money. But what was the book he had? It eventually became looks like a lot like an Apple iPad, but it was the something book. A lot of it was a mock-up, but he had the vision of that in the early 70s, and we still haven't gotten to what he wanted to do.
I'm just saying, we could have had Unreal in the early 80s if it wasn't for the recalcitrant organizations like Berkeley and the rest of the Ivy League who stand in the way of progress. This is what I'm saying. On one hand, we've got a government who wants progress and creates so-called progress by constantly rising the wages, right? Constantly increasing the competition, squeezing older people out of the market and chasing the ever younger crowd, pretty much destroying everything in their wake. Where on the other hand, you have recalcitrant institutions which refuse to change, refuse to understand that within 30 years, AI will write all code. You will not write code.
Yeah, this was Dynabook is what it was, 1972. Here, I'll put the link to the Wikipedia page in the chat.
Yeah,
I'll do it from X, so it shows up in my name and not the channels. But look at what he wanted to do in 1972.
Yeah, and we could have had we had click and point games. We had huge growth in and we're going to have it again because sooner or later, AI is going to put the music industry out of business. It's going to put Hollywood out of business. It's going to put the universities out of business. It's going to put most programmers out of business. It's going to put a lot of lawyers out of business because the government doesn't know its own right. The government does not care about its own people. It's in this stupid agenda that it can't even reconcile its beliefs, right? You can see the contradictions in their beliefs, right? Yeah. You got old farts like Mitch McConnell who want to cling to the ancient university model. On the other hand, he's talking about a bright, technological future. No, universities don't create innovation. They create exploitation.
Yeah, they used to.
They don't educate. They indoctrinate. Yeah.
Yep. They indoctrinate like bad motherfuckers.
I don't know about your experience, but most people who came out of Australian universities who did programming First thing they did was handed you go for a job. The first thing they do is hand you a book on programming and get you to relearn everything, unlearn everything you learned at university.
Yeah. Yeah, there's probably some of that. I mean, I went to the University of Tennessee, and
I'm not saying all universities. I'm just saying most of them don't and are not up to date.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I don't know what they teach now, but when I was there 35 years ago, Dr. Poor, who was he only had that position for 5 years, but his vision was to try and rival MIT in many ways. And so it was he was an apostle. He was a disciple of Harlan Mills. So he was very into structured programming theorem and the concept of mathematical proof of algorithms to prove that your concepts were correct.
Yeah, I remember that. I think it was called NOIM.
Well, there were several variants.
Several
people had the similar ideas that were floating around. And
they taught it here in Australia I think it was called the NOIM system.
Right. The problem that he ran into, in my opinion, the problem with it was, well, number one, Harlan Mills was had a doctorate in math first. And this was the biggest problem when computers were the concept that you could have computer science
without needing math
as an undergraduate was a mistake, because your early programmers either had degrees in math or engineering first. So they already had the math. And so yes, I had discrete math, but the 200 level discrete math class and the 300 level computer or discrete structures, computer structures, data structures, it goes by several different names, is not enough math to do the aggressive mathematical proving of algorithms that Harlan Mills ideas require. You can then add in the computational theory class, which again, it's an upper level junior class, but it's still undergraduate, and without a minimum of undergraduate algebra 1 and 2, and this is not the algebra they teach you in high school, okay? But there is a class in the math degree called Algebra 1 and 2 that is essentially the theory underneath the algebra they teach you.
Predicate calculus, and it was pretty much advanced level.
Right, and predicate calculus is very simple compared to the discrete math skill.
I'm just saying, I'm just saying, even predicate calculus, and a lot of universities dropped it because they were failing people, but a lot of universities kept it because they say it sorts the wheat from the chaff.
But you do need that, because one of the things that's starting to happen in the last, you say you're a little bit behind. One of the interesting things that's been happening in better software development lately is more functional oriented, not a pure functional language like Lisp, but functional oriented code being expressed in object oriented languages. And without predicate calculus, it gets very muddy what you're doing, because essentially the underlying idea is so
you need I can understand what you're saying. You need the outline.
Right. Otherwise, so we're separating the structure. So this is why I think I know we're really into Nerdville here, but you have your structured programming, you have your object oriented, and you have your functional. And the believers in each of those back in the 50s and 60s kind of laid the destructive work for too long. In other words, because especially functional programming and Lisp and others was so difficult to get any kind of performance out of, what it feels to me is and I was guilty. I was caught up in this maelstrom as well. Those were seen as three distinct ideas, and they are not. They are expressions. It's almost like the Trinity, right? Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. It's expressions of the same idea, but perceived differently.
Yeah.
And so now, where we had spent several decades, and we still do try to separate our you can go back in the 90s. There's books written on this all over the place.
Yeah, you have your interface, your function.
But, right. You want these things separated out. And we did our layer cakes. We did all this other garbage. And now it's like we finally got through the noise and minutia. And now it's like, well, but we can also reuse structure. And many times the structure is the exact same, and it's the functionality in between that's different. And so now there is because you get a lot, especially in C#, which is part of why I like programming this language. You can express a lot of this functionality without being purely functional. You can group your functionality into classes without being purely object oriented. And yes, I agree with Jim Copeland. We're really more class oriented than object. It's not really the object that Alan Kay, the creator of the concept, came up with, but for lack of any other term, class-based. Okay, class-based. That's class-oriented. That's fair. And inside the classes, you can follow good structured programming with let's say one return, but we'll say not multi-level return. Right, all your returns at the same level. Even in some languages, you can express it like Pascal or some others. It's an.
You do have layers in some, but not others. Yeah.
Right. Well, you don't have the return statement in Pascal. You assign the value to your function and it returns, but it'll return at that point, right? You don't have to assign it to a local variable and necessarily.
No.
But if you start, and then if you have substructure under that, quite often that is a different thing, and you can yank that and put it in a different class, right? So now I've got my outer structure, if you will, and then instead of having if layers, and I'm 9 layers deep and I don't know where the hell I am anymore, I can now pull these things apart. Maybe they're local functions, or that's another thing that .NET has. It's had it for several years inside of it's a local function inside of a method, right? So so now I can organize this stuff, and I'm using all three concepts at the same time, right? Because now I have a structure. I can have a class that only has structure, has no functionality whatsoever, but it knows how to log errors to wherever in the hell they need to go, and my stuff over here doesn't care anymore, right? And this other thing maybe there's multiples because they talk to one another. And now we're starting to pull more structure out and say, okay, here's another scaffolding, if you will. And I say, okay, by lambda calculus, essentially, it could be anonymous or named and named delegates and all this other nonsense. I can say, over here in this class, I have this method. I'm doing something local, but now I need to go somewhere else to get some stuff. And when it gets an answer, I have a thing to run, right? And I can say, hey, structure over here. Here's the whatever stuff you need. It does its thing. It might log. It might do some other stuff. And then I can, with generics, I can then say, and I expect a reply of type whatever.
Yeah.
Right. And so now all this thing over here really cares about is it's like when it's no longer local, it uses something else to resolve. If I build it correctly, I can test this stuff independent of the structure. So I can test that the structure is right. I can test that my local functions are right. And I can have a high degree of belief that when I throw them to the structure to say, do A and B and see if it implies C or D, that's going to work. And I don't have to test that at all. Right. And so now I have the concepts of functional programming, right? So I can compose. I don't know, functional composition you can do in Lisp and other things like that, lambda calculus, all that kind of stuff. But I no longer have to compose it in over here. I can let something else compose it. And what that also means is in the context of, say, a unit test, I can do a whole different composition that makes sense to that test. And my production code can now have its own structural composition. So now the I've pulled out by environment those pieces without doing injection and a bunch of other hooey nonsense that I used to do like a madman. And these things stand alone, or they stand in another context, and I know, and they don't care at all. And so that's your remember with object oriented, your polymorphism and your
well, like I said,
data encapsulation, right? All those all the things that were going to rule the world in the late '80s. Okay, with
are going by the wayside because you don't have to learn them to.
But I'm saying is those concepts are still there.
And yet we still don't have anti-gravity boots or hovercrafts.
But they're realigned. All three of those programming paradigms, okay, are now intertwined as far as almost like they hand off to one another, right? So your structured programming still exists. It's in a structure that's now independent of your functions, and your functional decomposition. Your functional composition in your lambda calculus can be fully done by context as opposed to in your code, and the functions themselves can be organized into objects that they, and it's almost like we're closer to what Alan Kay did with Smalltalk 50 years ago by going around the planet to go around the block. It's like we've gone around the solar system. And we're almost, but not quite, back to where Alan's still been standing since 1968. Going where the
that's the problem.
If you would have listened to me 50 years ago, we'd be here. To your point, we would have moved forward from that spot. So anyway,
you had universities who wanted to push their own agenda because they wanted to be the prestigious.
A lot of them wanted to teach languages. I know a guy that left university. I was working in the library, and one of our student workers was a computer science student. And he left because he wanted to learn how to program in C. And so it's like, I told him, I said, you can't get language dependent. You have to keep your thoughts and the language separate, or you're going to get in trouble. And that's what happens a lot of boot camps and other things. I think this may be where you were going with what they were learning. People had this general stuff, but we didn't know how to apply it. I didn't. I mean, It wasn't until I started going back and looking at my computational theory books because I was moving and having to pack stuff years ago that I realized,
that's right.
Oh, wait a minute. This has got some value. Now, to your other point, when I encounter people, especially when I was a manager, who have that computer science and they do remember and bits and pieces of computational theory and lambda calculus and all that, I can build on that. But that's actually what we need to be utilizing. But in my view, if you start with a math degree, then learn computer science, it's a hell of a lot easier. But if you're an idiot like me who can almost do calculus, it'll bury you. So anyway.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying that, AI is going to basically, you're going to have kids at 12 download Unreal and program the game of the year, with a bunch of friends, all using AI.
I think the AI
not need university
helps up here, but I don't know if the AI is writing itself. That's where I don't know. And then it becomes self-aware. I've been using Copilot for several weeks now, trying to write unit tests after the fact, and it hasn't one line of code that works.
The problem is that AI right now, it's dependent on libraries that haven't been fact-checked.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I mean, truly fact-checked, not just stuck on because they disagree.
No, right now, Google, ChatGPT, and Apple are all guilty of throwing anything and everything they could find in search results into their AI, and now they're desperately scrambling. ChatGPT's been caught lying, and they don't know how to fix it.
Yeah. So anyway, we are getting up to it's getting
we're getting close to a time when we must say adieu.
So Anime, you got anything else you want to? I know we went off into all kinds of weirdness tonight, but anything you want to cover before we call it a night? And I let the dogs out and go see if there's anything shoot out of the sky.
Yeah.
No, I think we practically covered what's going on going forward, how scared the opposition is of us now that we're really
yeah.
now that
They
the
are
tides are turned this year because
they are really scared of people, man. And
because
I don't
and
know
they
who they fear
they
most.
should be scared. They should be scared of us because we find
Yeah, I
2024
just
was.
wish Matt Gates would not have chickened out. Oh, it makes me so pissed off.
And now that he has a TV show too, it's like Matt Gates, just stay on the Senate floor and keep doing what you're doing. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And
No.
and make these people cower and beg and everything. I am ready though for this new administration. I am ready. And with Mitch McConnell and Nancy Pill Popper gone, hopefully.
No, I thought she ran again.
No, she's out as
Okay.
House Speaker, so she can't stop Trump now. She can't stop Trump.
No, that in that regard. But yeah, it'd be
The Democrats really gambled everything at Kamala, but they lost a lot of walls that they had that made them so unstoppable in 2020.
They had a lot of their.
I bet you things are very uncomfortable in the Kamala household right now because isn't her husband a officer in Dominion voting?
I don't know.
I know he works for yeah. Look, there's a good book out. It's called Mafia Democracy. You don't have to read it if you don't want to. You can just go to Michael Franchi's channel. He lays it out about interrelationships in the Democrat government and activists and media.
Oh, he's one of my favorites because I like.
Oh, is that the guy that's a former mobster?
Yes.
Chill, dude. I like his takes. I may not agree with everything he says, but he does. When he really speaks, you actually listen, and it's like, oh, okay, I see it from that perspective.
Yeah, he went to prison like in the early '80s, right?
He was one of the first taken down by Giuliani.
Yeah,
and he's the only one to have beaten Giuliani in court. He beat Giuliani on a couple of RICO charges, but they got him on the big one, the fuel fraud, which he admitted to. But
that was the one that some. There was a reporter that did an article that was way overinflating how much money he was actually making. It almost got him killed.
Yeah. Yes, that's right. Because she said he made billions, and mom said, "Hey, Michael, where's the money?"
Yeah. Why did I look?
But he had the receipts. He had the receipts.
All of a sudden, everything looks red to me. I don't know why.
That saved his life. Keeping he had all the receipts. That saved his life.
Oh yeah.
That reporter was out to get him.
Yeah, and almost did vicariously. But anyway,
I don't know what it is, reporters, but there's some who just don't care who they step on.
Yeah, I think it's my screen.
Like Joe Reed.
Colors come off my screen because now I'm looking even more like I'm sunburned. Anyway,
I think it's time to.
Yes, I'm looking at myself instead of paying attention. But
yeah.
So no, but check out everyone else's. Scan the QR code, do all that, and I'm hoping that because right now I'm running Pop! OS instead of Mint Linux, and it's sort of working, sort of not. The performance with the Mint 22 and Vulkan and other stuff is just absolutely atrocious. So I don't know what's going on. But hopefully, I filled out my return request. I was showing Anime you weren't here. This is the SSD that died last week. I'm hopefully get it replaced soon.
Ooh.
I can't get anything off of it. I have a backup of most, but not everything. But anyway, and the like, and tomorrow I'll be skiing at Beach Mountain, patrolling, and
that's the beach
there. And hopefully everything is happening cool, and we will see you hopefully next week. Our fearless leader will be back from having fun with the family. And so, all right,
it's always fun hanging out with you guys. It's always a lot of fun.
All right, you never know where we're going to go, and tonight we went all kinds of crazy places. And we will see you next time. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Good day, sir.
Later, dudes.
Good night, Jim Bob.
Hell, I got to go.
Peace out.
Burn in hell, New World Order. Fuck you. Fuck you, New World Order. Fuck you, Bill Gates.
I love you.
You gotta do better than that.
I love you.